greetings and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a best selling author, no other than Mr. Karim Soliman. Welcome back, Mr. Karim.
Thank you so much for having me again, Daniel. It's a pleasure.
Yes, and last episode we talked about
Army
curse.
of the Cursed, yeah.
And let's do the recap of what we talked last time.
Sure, if you remember.
Yes, and I think this is your latest novel.
Yeah, it's my latest series. It is set in the world of Gorania. It's an epic fantasy that is about three main characters trying to save their world from extinction.
Wow, sounds interesting, people. If you miss our episode with Mr. Karim with his latest novel, please do listen. Army of the Curse. What book we were gonna talk about today?
Today it will be about my debut novel, The Warrior's Path. It's the first book in the Tales of Gorania series, and it is set in the same world of the War of the Last Day, but with a totally different set of characters.
Wow, sounds interesting. And according to Amazon, number one bestseller in Arthurian fantasy in Amazon UK and Amazon Canada.
Yes,
And number one bestseller in dark fantasy in Amazon Australia. And of
yes.
and of course number one bestseller in sword and sorcery fantasy ebooks in Amazon Canada. Also, you're very popular in Canada, Mr. Kareem. Say
Yeah,
hi to them.
yeah. Hi, Canada. I love
Uh,
you.
yes. So, how does it feel that your debut novel is number one bestseller?
First of all, The Warrior's Path, I released it in 2017 first with a small press, and then I got my rights back in 2018. And a couple of years, as I told you in in the previous podcast, I had that freedom of doing whatever I can do from promos and pricing. I can call all the shots. So I had I had the ability to make some promos. I had a book pub deal. I think that was the thing that helped me get the best selling tag from Amazon. And as you just mentioned, I got it in Australia, in Canada, and UK. And it won't work if I didn't have that freedom.
Yes, definitely. Tales of Gorania. How many series are there?
Tales of Gorania is made from four books. It's like a totaling in almost half a million words of of the four books.
Wow. So, do you think this is more? You want to expand more, or this is the end? Only four books.
The Tales of Grania is already concluded in their four books, and there is like another series in Gorania with more three books with a totally different plot. Am I going to write more books in Gorania with a different series? I really don't know because I think there are a lot of secrets and legends to discover in the world of Gorania. So it's tempting to go back there.
Definitely, it's a prequel or a sequel.
Yeah, it's Tales of Gorania is considered a prequel to War of the Last Day. It happens like 17 years earlier before the events of the next series.
Oh wow, sounds interesting, Mr. Karim. The Warrior's Path. How did you crafted it?
The warrior's path has really different circumstances from crafting War of the Last Day. At that time, I didn't have any. It started like in 2013, and at that time, writing was just merely a hobby. I didn't have any plans to make it a book. I was just, writing whatever came to my mind. And when I started posting it on Wattpad, when I started posting the first chapters, and I found that people are loving it, I found myself that I have to finish what I have started. At that time, I knew nothing about the craft at that time, but I learned while I was writing it, and after I finished it, I rewrote it like two or three more times until it became in the current version that it has become right now.
Wow, indeed interesting. The Warrior's Path. What behind the title of your first book of Tales of Gorania?
Yeah, the title. Yeah, it's because the book is following the journey of our main character, Masalon. He is. It's the story is all about his path of redemption. You see, he is an outsider who wants to start a new life in Gorania. He wants to escape from his shame and the pain of guilt because of his crime in his old life. So he wants to pave a new path in Gorania, and he, from his own beliefs, that if he starts to forge his own path of justice in Gorania, that will bring him peace of mind and salvation. So that's what that warrior's path is. What is all the book is about.
Yes, amazing indeed. And according to S.E. Grayson, author The Bones and Demon King, boldly written, rich in detail, and filled with characters that seem to actually breathe as they leap off the pages. Oh my goodness, one of a kind comments or reviews. Don't you think, Mr. Karim?
Yeah, I think many of my reviewers like the characters, and I'm really happy that what I'm trying to do with my writing is actually achieved in reality. I'm trying to make my characters relatable. They are not perfect; they are flawed, and it's really challenging to make your readers love your characters despite their mistakes, because I don't believe it would be interesting to write a character that who is perfect in everything they do. There has to be and my main character has his own flaws, so I'm glad that people can relate to him despite his mistakes.
Are you the writer that you equal the villain and the hero?
It depends. I know it's a rising trend now, what they call the morally gray character, but there is no, in my stories there is not that villain without his. There is no clear demarcation between the heroes and villains. Although Masalon appears, my main character in that story appears to be the man with a good intentions, and he starts as a hero. But as we see along the series, I don't want to make spoilers, but as we see along the series in the next four books, he might commit things that maybe in his mind he wants to do the right thing, but sometimes he does he from the other's point of view, what is he's doing is not always the right thing. So it is always for the reader to decide. It's whether he's right or wrong. This is for the reader to decide. But I
Yes.
don't have this, what they call bright. And there is no this knight in the shining armor. I don't have this in my stories, or the overlord with absolute darkness. I don't have this in my stories.
The book one of Tales of Gorania. What is the flaws?
The flaws. Okay, I think well, the flaws of the Warriors path, or maybe what I could have done better in the Warriors path. The Warriors path is a low fantasy, and the low fantasy by low fantasy I means there is no big dose of magic in this series in general. I don't think it's a flaw, but I think it's a matter of preference because some readers love their fantasy heavy with magic and paranormal creatures, and I think what's the big difference between the Warrior's Path and Army of the Cursed, for instance. So I don't think this is a flaw, but I think it's a matter of preference. If you like low fantasy stories in the vein of the Last Kingdom, I guess the Warrior's Path will appeal to this kind of readers.
Very well said, Mr. Karim. If you want to go back to modify the warrior's path, which part of the book you want to modify?
The this is always hard because the Warrior's Path I changed it a lot. I changed it like there are parts of that I changed it 3 or 4 times because it was my debut novel and there was a lot that I learned later afterwards. So I will tell you what I have changed. Actually, it was mainly about maybe some parts related to the pacing of some fight scenes, some of the bits of the dialogue, but I didn't change anything major in the plot. I was trying just to make the Warrior's Path stands to part to my latest writing because as I told you, I started writing like 10 years ago. So, but I guess I'm done. I'm done changing it. The last change I made to the Warrior's Path was like a few months ago, and every time I tell myself this is the last time I make changes to the Warrior's Path. So hopefully that is the last time.
Do you think the revision is worth it?
Yeah. Every time I read the revision, I because I'm one of those writers who read their own books. So that when I read it now, I like it better than it was. Because I still have the old versions, and it is much better now than the old versions. So I think the revision is worth it. And now I'm telling myself it is. It's now. It's good enough. I don't need to change anything now.
Yes, and according to Fiona Andrew, what a book. I read it in one day. In fact, I stayed awake all night reading it. Oh, wow. Sounds interesting comment, Mr. Karim. So, people out there, let's support Mr. Karim. Let's make this a series or a motion picture. Don't you think, Mr. Karim?
I hope so. Whether it becomes a motion picture or a series, I will be happy to see it. So I hope I have the luxury one day to choose between those two.
With a great ending, right?
With a great ending. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely great ending.
That
What did you put in the story to make it boldly written, according to Mr. Grayson?
I think I don't. I'm not. Of course, I'm not sure what. But to be honest, I'm not sure what is meant by boldly written. I guess she found something that she liked about it, but I think it's about you know the theme of the story itself because I was this was my debut novel, and I wrote. The world. Many people tend to start their novels with a small scale in general. The stakes are not that high in the Warrior's Path, but the world itself was really extensive, and I wasn't afraid of that. I In the Warrior's Path, our main character like travels in 3 or 4 different kingdoms out of the 6 kingdoms of Gorania. And I think that while some might find that a little bit distracting, for because of the many places he goes. But I wasn't afraid of doing that. I was trying to make my character explores the world in a pace that allows the reader to absorb and grasp everything going on.
As a debut novel, what did you learn from it?
You can say possibly everything because in your debut novel, especially when you don't know you have no idea how your people will receive your writing. I learned how to make my characters more relatable. In the later books, I learned how to make my plot more, how to add more plot twists uh, in my books. So there is a lot I learned, other than writing, how to market my debut novel. I was exploring every aspect about self-publishing, from terms of writing, from the craft itself, or to the advertising and the marketing. My book, everything. I was, totally ignorant when before the Warrior's Path, and after that, I was, it was a light bulb moment after I published my book.
Yes, definitely. So before we go on, Mr. Karim, I want to shout out to the people listening in the United Arab Emirates. Assalamu alaikum. Shukran jazilan, United Arab Emirates. Because in Dubai, I got 76% audience share. Abu Dhabi at 21% and Sharjah at 3%. Thank you again. Shukran jazilan, United Arab Emirates, supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world like Mr. Karim Soliman. So, Mr. Karim, what are your advice for those want to publish their novel or story?
First of all, you have to read. You have to be reading in your genre before. You have to read more than you write to be familiar with the tropes, and what the readers might be expecting from your genre, because you need you will need that, especially when you're designing the something like the cover, because you want your cover to be relatable. And I see sometimes, especially with debut novels, some writers who might write a good story, but their covers does not reflect the genre or the market preference, and it doesn't sell because it doesn't attract the market. So my advice, especially for debut authors, to have a look at the market, at the similar books that target the same genre that they are writing in.
Yes, very well said, Mr. Karim. What are your tips to become successful writer?
So it's a very, it's a very big question, Daniel, and I think it always depends on how do we define success, because do we define success by the amount of royalties you earn, or it is about the how your story is received by the community. So it depends on how do we define success. But if we say that we want a book that because everyone has his own goals in terms of success, you have to write a solid story, I guess, a very well written story that goes out without saying. You have to, because your book won't sell on its own or won't be found on its own. You have many paths, and we saw that, especially with we have with from the different success stories. Not everything works for everybody. Some word of mouth work it for some authors. Advertising and investing in ads is the thing that worked for them. So you have to be familiar with every aspect regarding of the advertising and marketing, and you try your luck with either path. But either way, you will have to put some effort in making your book visible so that it becomes, successful.
Yes, come to my podcast and let's promote it. So, The Warrior's Path, do you think this novel will become a timeless novel?
I hope so. I found it's really big for me to say that about my own novel. So I hope my readers find it so.
Definitely, indeed. And according to S.A. Kloffenstein, great of fans of sharp and crisp epic fantasy. Oh, how crispy it is, Mr. Karim. I like crispy, Mr. Karim. So, can you tell us how crispy it is?
I guess maybe they were talking about because in general I have lots of fight scenes in the warrior's path, and there is a dose of romance in also. So maybe fight scenes and romance. This is the recipe for crispy. I don't.
Yes, definitely. Is it in your battle scene? Is like I'm imagining the battle scene of Game of Thrones. It's more grandeur.
Well, I'm trying to make a variety of fight scene scenarios because start with one on one or or those small scale fight scenes. Later in the series, we have grand fight scenes like in Game of Thrones, and they are with different scenarios. Sometimes our main characters are the ones on the offense. Sometimes they are the ones they defend, and sometimes he has the resources. Sometimes he doesn't. And sometimes it's an open battlefield. So I'm trying not to repeat myself in battle scenes so that my readers can enjoy them, those battles.
Sir Karim, how do you refrain repetitiveness in your novel?
I try always to explore new things. Yeah, in the tales of Gorania, the Warrior's Path, I started with one main character who's Masalon. In starting from the book two, the Queen's Rebel, I started to introduce another main character, a strong, a female main character. Later in the series, I started to put more POVs. One of them was a young adult, and in the next series, I made my main characters, all of them younger in age than in Tales of Gorania. I added more magic. I added more, creatures, and the elements of fantasy were heavier in the next series. So I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to do. Trying different things, different themes in my novels.
Yes, and let's talk about the negative reviews, Mr. Karim, so that we can not defend, so to elaborate more what he's talking about. And according to Gus Hangor, I don't know how you pronounce it, and
I
it's
don't know
saying,
either.
yes, and it said, I cannot go through this. He's saying that the author does not give enough time to develop the story or something. So how can you defend yourself?
As we talked about negative reviews before, Daniel, so I will say it again. When I say a comment that is repetitive, I put it into consideration. But as we see, some readers found the pace of the Warrior's Path a little bit slow. So I don't know how. So and they found and they had a reason for that because it's a first book in the first series, so it is understandable that you want to set up your character and set the world and try to make your reader, be have the time to explore this world and understand the character. So for another reader, he finds that he didn't have enough time for to set the character. So honestly, I have nothing to say about that.
Yes,
It's all subjective, because at some point there are people who love the characters. There are some people who didn't like the characters. Sometimes sometimes the people love the world. Sometimes people that didn't find that the world building was not enough. So you can never know whom to believe.
I think I believe with the majority, Mr. Karim, because out of 121 global ratings, you have 54% 5 star. So believe on the majority. You're a good writer, Mr. Karim, a best-selling author. So don't care with the critical review because this make you better and better in your next novel. Do you agree?
Sure thing. I'm really glad and I'm proud that the Warrior's Path it has like 121 star ratings on Amazon, and it has an average of 4.4. So as you were saying, the majority finds it good. So maybe I'm doing something right. It's not that bad after all.
Yes, you're doing something right. Before we go on, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Geography 101. It's all about the places that I visited from Europe, Caribbean, North America, South America, Asia, and a lot more. So please do listen, Geography 101. Plus, one more, please do grab a copy of my photography book, Spring Flowers and Panoramic View. Now we are spring in Canada. We have a beautiful flowers coming up blooming around, and if you want to look at, please do grab a copy of my spring flowers. So Mr. Karim, the Warriors Path, what is the best highlight?
The best highlight for the Warriors Path, I think getting a bestseller was the best thing the best for me. It was one of the high points for the Warriors Path. And in different Amazon marketplaces, I think that one was one of the main highlights for me for the Warriors Path.
Definitely, indeed. As a best-selling debut novel, aside for being bestseller, what else you want to achieve in writing?
I want to, for the time being, I'm working on finishing my series right now, the last day. I'm writing the last bits of the last book, and I don't know if I'm going to. I still have a couple of ideas. If I'm not sure if I'm going to write in the same world, or I will write. I start to build a different new world with different, universe. So still haven't made up my mind, but I have that already like 3 or 4 story ideas in my mind. So for the time being, I'm focusing on finishing my current series, the last day, and after that, I will decide.
Yes, definitely. Can you please invite our listeners to buy all your books?
Yeah, definitely. The Warrior's Path. If you're a fan of low fantasy and you love heroes who are larger than life, and you are into stories with fights and those of Romans and bandits and kings, so definitely the Warrior's Path is a story for you.
Definitely. So you are now an indie author, right,
Yes,
Mr. Karim?
yes.
Do you think in the future you will be go both traditional and indie?
I think to go traditional, it's not something by choice for the time being. I have to to have an offer from one of the big five publishers, and until that, I'm still indie. But if if you get the chance to become a traditional, that's a very different story, and it is not by, for the time being, it's not by choice. They are the ones who choose you for the time being. But if you maybe later you choose not to continue with them, that's how it works.
Yes, indeed. The main character of your debut novel, can you share to us?
Okay, the main character is Macelon. He is a barbarian. He's accused for, actually he's the one who killed the chieftain of his own clan, which who happens to be at the same time to be his own father. So he has a lot of shame and guilt haunting his mind, and he's trying to escape from his past and start his and forge his own path of justice and salvation in the world of Gorania. But the thing and the struggle that he faces in Gorania, that the people there, not all of them appreciate what he's doing, because some of them regard him as a barbarian, so they don't trust him. Some of them even question his humanity, because they believe that anyone who comes from outside Gorania could be a demon or anything, but not human. So he starts to question himself later, that if it's worth it to pursue this path of salvation. So as we see, Macelon, our main character, he has a sort of leadership. He believes he's doing or he's striving to do the right thing, but later on he questions his own doings, and I think my readers will start to question his own deeds at the end of the book.
Yes, very well said, Mr. Karim. So, Mr. Karim, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Welcome, people. See you soon.